Some secrets carry a weight that can crush a man's soul. There are truths so jagged, so visceral, that once they enter your mind, they can never be unlearned. They sit there, behind your eyes, changing the way you see every smile, every handshake, and every flickering image on a television screen. Most people in the hills of Hollywood know how to look away. They are masters of the selective blind spot, experts at ignoring the screams behind the velvet curtains. But Jim Caviezel is not most people. The man chosen by Mel Gibson to portray the suffering of the Christ on the world stage decided he could no longer play the part of the silent observer. He stepped out of the light of the A-list and into the freezing shadows of an underworld most of us pray does not exist. He didn't just walk away from his career. He burned the bridge behind him and stood on the embers to tell us exactly what he saw. Close your eyes and imagine the absolute peak of professional success. You are the face of an industry that dictates the culture of the entire planet. Your phone does not stop ringing. The world is your playground. Now, imagine walking into a boardroom and telling the most powerful men in the world that you have seen the unthinkable. Imagine telling them about the children. Not the sanitized versions we see in charity commercials, but the raw, terrifying reality of human beings treated like disposable commodities. Caviezel did not just hear rumors. He stood in the sweltering heat of Colombia and watched with his own eyes as children were sold like fruit in broad daylight. This was not a movie set. There were no directors to yell cut. There was only the cold, hard exchange of currency for flesh. When he brought this truth back to the towers of glass and steel in Los Angeles, he expected outrage. He expected a call to action. Instead, he met a wall of silence so thick it felt like a physical weight. The message from the studios was clear and chilling. If you touch this, you are finished. If you try to tell this story, your name will be erased from the credits of history. They gave him a timeline. 3 years. 3 years of being a ghost. 3 years of being blacklisted, isolated, and discarded by the very system that had once worshipped him. But they underestimated the resolve of a man who believes he is on a mission from God. They tried to bury the film's Sound of Freedom, but they only succeeded in turning it into a beacon. Because according to Caviezel, the trafficking networks we see on the news are only one limb of a much larger, much more terrifying creature. He calls it the 8-armed octopus. It is a beast with its head hidden in the highest reaches of global power, and its tentacles wrapped around every institution we are taught to trust. You can cut off one arm. You can bust a local ring. You can save a handful of kids from a basement in a sleepy suburb. But the arm will grow back. The system is designed to regenerate because the demand at the top is insatiable. This isn't just about money. It isn't just about the 300,000 children under the age of 18 who are pulled into trafficking operations in the United States every single year. It is about something far more sinister, something that involves the very blood and vitality of the innocent. As we stand here in 2026, the numbers have only grown more haunting. 85,000 children crossed the border last year and simply vanished. No records, no fingerprints, no digital footprint. They are gone, swallowed by the machine. But why? Why does the machine have such an appetite? Caviezel's testimony points toward the most exclusive real estate on Earth, a private island that has become a synonym for the ultimate betrayal of humanity. Epstein Island was not just a playground for the rich and famous. It was a laboratory. It was a cathedral of the profane. And the names appearing in the unsealed documents are not just names. They are icons. They are the people who tell us how to think, how to feel, and who to vote for. When Oprah Winfrey's name appeared 5 times in those unsealed documents, the world should have stopped turning. When the proximity of figures like Ellen DeGeneres to these circles is mentioned, it is not just gossip, it is a map. a map leading to a secret so dark it makes the simple act of kidnapping look like a minor offense. The elite have a secret that keeps them looking young while the world decays, a secret that involves biological material extracted under conditions of unimaginable terror. They call it the young skin secret. It is the fuel for the octopus, and Jim Caviezel is the man who decided to cut the head off the beast, no matter the cost to his own life. He is telling us that the gatekeepers are real. The people we see as moral authorities are often the ones holding the keys to the cages. They provide the social credentials. They give the predators the cover they need to operate in plain sight. They create a culture where participation is the only way to survive. Once you have consumed what they serve, you are bound to them forever. You are as guilty as the person who served the plate. This is the blood bond of the Hollywood elite, and the cracks are finally starting to show. But before we dive into the horrifying science of the harvest, we have to understand the architecture of the cover-up. We have to look at the people who were sacrificed to keep this machine running. We have to look at the faces of the children who were never supposed to be found. Because the story of what Ellen and the others allegedly did to stay young is not just a tale of vanity. It is a tale of a black market that operates without ethics, without mercy, and without end. Let us go back to the beginning. Let us look at the moment the veil was torn and the true face of the industry was revealed. Because the truth is not just out there, it is screaming to be heard. And the clock is ticking for the gatekeepers who thought they were untouchable. The obsession with youth is the oldest religion in the world. In the gilded corridors of Hollywood, it is more than just a preference. It is a survival mechanism. Your face is your currency, and in a town that discards people the moment a wrinkle appears, the pressure to stop time is absolute. We are told it is all about expensive creams, vegan diets, and the best plastic surgeons in Beverly Hills. But according to the shadows Jim Caviezel is now illuminating, there is a much darker shelf in the vanity of the elite. A shelf stocked with things that cannot be bought at a pharmacy, things that require a harvest. When we talk about Epstein Island, the mind goes to the luxury, the private jets, and the horrific betrayal of trust. But Caviezel suggests we are missing the logistical heart of the operation. He speaks of it as a factory, a place where the young skin secret wasn't just a rumor discussed in hushed tones over martinis, but a terrifying industry. He describes a culture that believes vitality can be literally transferred from the young to the old. This isn't science fiction. This is the ancient, twisted belief that the blood and biological essence of a child, captured in a moment of peak physiological terror, contains a chemical signature that can reverse the aging process. They call it a black market of anti-aging, but that is too clean a term for what it really is. It is the consumption of the future to preserve a decaying past. Imagine the dinner parties where the menus are never printed. Imagine the gatherings where the cost of entry is your very soul. Caviezel is blunt about it. He claims that these people eat babies. He says it with a chilling level of certainty, a man who has looked into the abyss and saw something looking back. He isn't talking about a metaphor for exploitation. He is talking about a literal, visceral act. The claim is that figures like Ellen DeGeneres were not just casual observers of the elite lifestyle, but active participants in the most extreme versions of its rituals. The young skin secret supposedly involves the extraction of material from the bodies of children who have been pushed to the absolute brink of human fear. The theory is that the adrenaline surge creates a compound that, when consumed, acts as a potent elixir. This is where the eight-armed octopus becomes a predatory reality. The demand for this biological material creates a vacuum that sucks up the 85,000 children who vanished from the border. It creates a market for the 300,000 minors trafficked every year within American borders. They aren't just being sold for labor or for pleasure. They are being sold as raw material for a fountain of youth that sits in the private kitchens of the ultra-rich. Caviezel suggests that once you participate in this, whether you were fully aware at first or not, you are locked in. You are bound by a blood covenant of silence, because what you have consumed makes you as guilty as the person who served it. You cannot go to the police. You cannot blow the whistle. You are now a part of the machine. Think about the transformation of the public persona. We see a talk show host known for dancing, for kindness, for being the relatable face of daytime television. But behind that carefully curated image, Caviezel points to a hunger that cannot be satisfied by ratings alone. The narrative he presents is one of a desperate, cynical elite who view the rest of humanity as a resource to be mined. They don't just want your attention, they want your life force. The young skin isn't just about looking 25 when you are 64. It is about a sense of power. The ultimate high of knowing that you have taken something that does not belong to you and made it your own. This is why the Epstein documents are the last domino. They aren't just a list of names. They are a ledger of debt. When these documents mention 5 instances of Oprah Winfrey or link names like Sean Combs and Harvey Weinstein, it isn't just about social circles. It is about the infrastructure of the harvest. It is about the people who made sure the supply chain never broke. It is about the gatekeepers who looked at the source of their youth and chose to smile for the cameras instead of screaming for justice. Caviezel argues that the silence of these icons is their confession. If these claims were false, if these people were innocent, they would be fighting back with every lawyer in the country. They would be suing for billions. But Oprah isn't suing. Ellen isn't suing. The silence is deafening. It is the silence of those who know that any investigation into their secrets will lead directly to the cold storage of the soul. But the machine doesn't just rely on consumption. It relies on the elimination of anyone who tries to unplug the power. There are those who tried to speak, those who were on the inside and realized too late what they had become a part of. And then there were the investigators who got too close to the 8-armed octopus. As we look at the logistics of this anti-aging black market, we have to talk about the price of the truth. We have to talk about the ones who were silenced before they could finish their story. Because the octopus doesn't just grow back its arms, it uses them to strangle anyone who dares to point a finger at the head. One such name that keeps surfacing in the wreckage of this investigation is Anne Heche, a woman who lived in the very heart of the Hollywood elite, who shared a life with one of the primary gatekeepers, and who was reportedly ready to pull back the curtain on the entire machine. Her story and the documentary she was working on, titled Children of the Machine, provides the missing link between the consumption at the top and the disappearing children at the bottom. The details of her final days suggest that the octopus felt a threat it couldn't ignore. And as we will see, the young skin's secret is protected by a security apparatus that is as ruthless as it is invisible. To understand the monster, you have to look at its armor. The octopus doesn't just hide in the dark. It hides in the most brightly lit rooms on the planet. It hides behind the smiles of the most beloved figures in human history. This is what Jim Caviezel calls the gatekeeper system. It is a sophisticated architecture of social credentials where an endorsement from the right person acts as a bulletproof vest for a predator. In Hollywood, power isn't just about how much money you have in the bank. It is about your proximity to the icons of morality. If the queen of daytime television invites you onto her stage, if she places her hand on your shoulder and tells the world you are a visionary, you are suddenly untouchable. You are granted a level of social immunity that no amount of evidence can easily pierce. Let us speak about the pinnacle of this pyramid, Oprah Winfrey. For decades, she has been the ultimate arbiter of truth and goodness for millions of people. Her brand is built on empathy, on healing, and on the exposure of secrets. Yet, as the seals on the Epstein documents began to crack, a different pattern emerged. 5 times. Her name appeared 5 times in unsealed records associated with the most notorious pedophile ring in modern history. But the connection goes deeper than just a name on a list. It is about the company she kept and the monsters she validated. Look at the history of her endorsements. Harvey Weinstein, a man whose name is now a synonym for systemic abuse, was a regular in her inner circle. He didn't just exist in the same industry. He was part of the social fabric she helped weave. And then there is the case of John of God, the Brazilian faith healer who was later convicted of unspeakable crimes against hundreds of women and children. Before the world knew him as a predator, the world knew him as a miracle worker because Oprah Winfrey flew to Brazil to document his gifts. She gave him the ultimate credential. She opened the door for thousands of vulnerable people to walk straight into his reach. Caviezel argues that this isn't just a series of unfortunate coincidences. It is a structural necessity. The 8-armed octopus needs these gatekeepers to provide the social credentials that allow the harvest to continue. When a predator has the blessing of a moral icon, the victims are silenced before they even speak. Who would believe a child over a man who has been blessed by the most powerful woman in media? The system works because it is a mutual exchange of protection. The gatekeepers provide the cover, and in return, they are granted access to the young skin secret and the elite rituals that keep them at the top of the food chain. It is a closed loop of corruption. If you are inside the circle, you are protected by the collective weight of everyone else's secrets. This brings us to the most damning piece of evidence in Caviezel's testimony, the legal paradox. In a world where celebrities sue for the slightest perceived insult, where a tabloid headline can trigger a $50 million defamation lawsuit, why is there such a profound silence now? Jim Caviezel has stood on public platforms and accused the most powerful people in the world of the most heinous crimes imaginable. He has used words like eating babies. He has named names. He has pointed directly at the heart of the Hollywood machine. If what he is saying were a lie, if these people were truly innocent, they would have sued him into oblivion years ago. They have the resources. They have the best legal minds on the planet. They could crush him with a single filing. But Oprah isn't suing. Ellen isn't suing. The octopus is remaining silent. Why? Because a lawsuit requires discovery. A lawsuit opens the books. A lawsuit allows a light to be shown into the dark corners where the biological material is stored. They cannot afford to fight him in court, because in court, the truth is a matter of record, not just a PR statement. The silence of the innocent is a myth in Hollywood. In that town, silence is a signature. It is the sound of a non-disclosure agreement written in blood. The reason the gatekeepers don't fight back is that they are all holding the same detonator. If one goes down, they all go down. If Ellen's anti-aging rituals are exposed, the supply chain leading back to the border and the 85,000 missing children becomes an undeniable trail of breadcrumbs. They are bound by the very things they have consumed. As Caviezel puts it, once you have participated, knowingly or unknowingly, you are a part of the machine. You cannot leave. You cannot whistleblow. You can only continue to provide the social shield for the next generation of predators. But the shield is starting to crack. The public is no longer satisfied with the polished narratives of the 6 o'clock news. They are looking at the statistics. They are looking at the 300,000 children trafficked annually in the United States and asking how this is possible in a country with the most advanced surveillance in history. The answer is simple. The surveillance is looking the other way. The gatekeepers in the media, the ones who decide which stories lead the broadcast and which ones are buried on page 40, are part of the same octopus. They are the ones who frame the search for missing children as a conspiracy theory, while the elite continue their harvest in the hills of Montecito and the private coves of the Caribbean. We see the same pattern with Sean Diddy Combs and Rupert Murdoch. Different industries, same structure. A network of influence that ensures the head of the octopus is never touched. They use their platforms to distract, to entertain, and to gaslight the population into believing that the horrors Caviezel describes are just the fever dreams of a man who stayed in character too long. But as the Epstein dominoes continue to fall, And as more insiders realize that the system is no longer capable of protecting them, the gatekeeper strategy is shifting from protection to elimination. They are no longer just trying to hide the truth, they are trying to erase the people who carry it. This brings us to the final and most dangerous part of the machine, the silencers. The ones who handle the liabilities that the lawyers and PR agents can't fix. Because as we are about to see, when the social shield fails, the octopus uses its strongest tentacle to ensure that the secrets of young skin stay buried in the wreckage of a fateful accident. When the social shield of the gatekeepers fails, and when the legal threats of the lawyers fall on deaf ears, the octopus reaches for its final, most brutal tentacle. It stops trying to manage the narrative and starts trying to erase the narrator. In the high-stakes game of Hollywood secrets, being a liability is a death sentence. And in August 2022, the world witnessed what happens when someone from the very center of the storm tries to walk toward the light. Anne Heche was not just another actress. She was a woman who had occupied the inner sanctum of the elite. For years, she shared a life and a home with Ellen DeGeneres, placing her in direct proximity to the very circles Jim Caviezel now describes as the head of the octopus. She had seen the guest lists. She had heard the whispers about the young skin secret. She knew the price of the vitality that seemed to defy the natural laws of aging. But unlike the others, Anne Heche was starting to break. People called her erratic. They called her troubled. But in the final months of her life, she was working on a project that would have been the ultimate detonator, a documentary titled Children of the Machine. Those close to the production suggest that Heche wasn't just making a film. She was building a dossier. She was attempting to articulate the unthinkable, the connection between the entertainment industry's hunger for youth and the industrial-scale disappearance of children. She was becoming a liability that the gatekeepers could no longer control with non-disclosure agreements. Then came the crash. A blue Mini Cooper speeding through the streets of Los Angeles, a fiery impact, and a woman who was reportedly declared brain dead while the cameras were still rolling. The official report called it a tragic accident. But for those who follow the trail of the octopus, it looked like a cleanup operation. A witness who had seen too much, silenced just as she was about to speak. This is the reality of the machine. It is fueled by the 85,000 children who vanished from the border last year. It is sustained by the 300,000 minors pulled into trafficking within the United States every 12 months. This is not a conspiracy theory when the numbers are recorded in government ledgers. It is a documented crisis that the media refuses to connect to the young skin rituals of the ultra-rich. Caviezel argues that we are standing at the edge of a massive institutional collapse. The unsealed Epstein documents, the downfall of figures like Sean Combs, and the growing evidence of the 8-armed octopus are the last dominoes. The system is no longer capable of hiding the bodies. The young skin secret is more than just a horror story. It is the ultimate proof of a parasitic elite that views the public as a resource. They don't just want your votes or your money. They want the very essence of the next generation to fuel their own immortality. They have built a world where icons like Oprah and Ellen provide the cover, while the silencers handle the leaks. But as Jim Caviezel stands his ground, blacklisted and threatened, he is proving that the one thing the octopus cannot survive is a man who is not afraid to die for the truth. The fear in the eyes of the elite is not about the loss of their careers, it is about the loss of their masks. The question is no longer whether these things are happening. The question is how long we will allow the gatekeepers to tell us what to see. When 85,000 children disappear into the night, they don't just vanish. They are taken, they are harvested, and they are served on the private plates of people who spend their days preaching about kindness and their nights consuming the future. The machine is loud, it is powerful, and it is ruthless. But even the strongest machine has a breaking point. And that point is reached when the people finally refuse to look away. We want to thank you for your time and for your courage in seeking the truth behind the headlines. This journey into the heart of the eight-armed octopus is not an easy one, but it is necessary if we are to protect those who cannot protect themselves. If you found this investigation important, please consider subscribing to our channel and giving this video a like. Your support allows us to continue digging where others are afraid to look. We would like to hear from you in the comments. How do you feel about the evidence presented regarding the gatekeeper system and the young skin allegations? Do you believe that the silence of these powerful figures is a form of confession? If it is difficult for you to find the words to express your outrage or concern, please just write "thank you" for our work. It truly means a lot to our team and helps us keep going. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and remember that the truth is the only thing the machine cannot consume.